There's a scene in Lion King that broke many people's hearts, many kids, and that was the scene of when Mufasa died due to the stampede. I'm hit with this question of what if Mufasa survived it? How would the story play out? What would change? What would stay the same? And today I feel like this story gives us the best answer for that question. Hit the subscribe button. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. And yes, you, the person that clicked on this video because it seemed interesting, it looked interesting. Hit that subscribe button and I appreciate the support. All right, let's get into it.
The ground trembled, sending ripples through the earth. It was as if the very core of the planet was awakening from a deep slumber, shaking off centuries of stillness. The vibrations grew stronger, more insistent, as if demanding to be acknowledged. A sea of wildebeest thundered through the gorge, their hooves pounding the ground like a relentless drumbeat. The air was thick with dust and the scent of fear, as the massive herd moved as one, driven by an unseen force.
Trapped in the dust and chaos, I could only watch in horror. The world around me was a blur of movement and noise, and I felt so small, so powerless. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, but I was frozen in place, a helpless witness to the unfolding disaster.
He saw his father, Mufasa, flung back by the force of the stampede. The mighty lion, who had always seemed invincible, was now at the mercy of the chaos. His roar, once a symbol of strength and authority, was lost in the cacophony of the stampede. The world seemed to fall silent as the dust settled. The once vibrant savannah was now a scene of devastation, the air heavy with the aftermath of the chaos. It was a silence that spoke of loss, of a world forever changed.
I scrambled towards my father's unmoving form, my heart pounding in my chest. Each step felt like an eternity, the distance between us stretching impossibly. When I finally reached him, I could see the pain in his eyes, the struggle in his breath. Relief washed over me when Mufasa coughed, struggling to rise. But that relief was short-lived, replaced by a gnawing fear. His movements were slow, labored, and I could see the toll the stampede had taken on him.
But something was terribly wrong. Mufasa's leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, his breath shallow and pained. The sight of the great king, so vulnerable and broken, was a stark contrast to the powerful figure he had always been. The great king was alive, but gravely injured. His breaths came in ragged gasps, each one a struggle. The weight of his injuries was evident, and the reality of the situation began to sink in. News of the stampede and Mufasa's injuries spread like wildfire through the Pride Lands. The once peaceful kingdom was now a place of uncertainty and fear. The lions, who had always looked to Mufasa for guidance, were now left with a void. A shadow of uncertainty fell over the once vibrant kingdom. The skies, once clear and bright, were now overcast, mirroring the somber mood of the Pride Lands. It was as if the very land itself was mourning the loss of its king's strength. The lionesses, loyal but anxious, whispered amongst themselves. Their eyes were filled with worry, their voices hushed. They knew the gravity of the situation, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead weighed heavily on them.
Who would lead them now? The question hung in the air, unspoken but ever present. The pride needed a leader, someone to guide them through the darkness. But with Mufasa injured, the future seemed uncertain.
Simba, barely more than a cub, stayed by his father's side. The young lion, who had always looked up to his father, now found himself in a position he had never imagined. The weight of the world seemed to rest on his small shoulders. He felt the weight of responsibility settling on his small shoulders. The future of the pride, the safety of his family, all of it seemed to depend on him. It was a burden he was not prepared for, but one he knew he had to bear. He had to be strong for his father, for his pride. The determination in his eyes was clear, a resolve that belied his young age. He knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but he was ready to face it. Little did he know, a storm was brewing, fueled by ambition and deceit. The challenges he would face were far greater than he could have ever imagined, and the path to becoming a true leader was fraught with peril. Scar, Mufasa's brother, watched from the shadows. His amber eyes, usually filled with feigned amusement, now gleamed with cold calculation. Mufasa's injury was his chance.
The throne, so close yet always out of reach, was finally within my grasp.
He began to weave his web of deception. He whispered doubts into the ears of the lionesses, questioning Mufasa's ability to lead in his weakened state.
Simba is too young, too inexperienced to be a future king.
The lionesses, their usual confidence shaken, started to believe Scar's poisonous words. They loved and respected Mufasa, but fear gnawed at their hearts. A wounded king could not protect them from rivals or famine. They needed a strong leader, and Scar was all too eager to fill that role. Simba, oblivious to Scar's manipulations, focused on his father. He spent hours listening to Mufasa's stories, learning about the history of their pride and the responsibilities of a king.
I practiced my hunting skills, determined to contribute to the pride and ease my father's burden.
Mufasa, though in pain, saw the changes in his son. He could see the spark of leadership in Simba's eyes, a spark that was growing brighter with each passing day. Despite his own injuries and the weight of his responsibilities, Mufasa knew that he had to focus on preparing Simba for the future. The young cub was no longer just a playful child, he was becoming a young lion with a destiny to fulfill. Simba was growing up fast, too fast. The weight of the world was already settling on his young shoulders. He was beginning to understand the complexities of leadership, the burdens that came with being the future king. The playful days of his cubhood were fading, replaced by the harsh realities of what lay ahead. Simba felt the pressure, but he also felt a sense of purpose. He knew that he had to rise to the occasion, to become the leader that his father and the Pride Lands needed.
I knew I couldn't shield Simba forever. I had to prepare him for the challenges ahead, even as I fought my own battles. Every day I saw him grow stronger, more determined, but I also saw the weight of responsibility beginning to take its toll. It was a delicate balance, teaching him to be strong yet compassionate, to be wise yet decisive. I wanted him to understand that true leadership was not just about power, but about serving and protecting those who depended on him.
He began to train Simba more rigorously, teaching him not just the physical skills of a warrior, but also the wisdom and patience of a true leader. Mufasa knew that the challenges Simba would face would not just be physical battles, but also moral and ethical dilemmas. He taught Simba about the importance of justice, of making decisions that were fair and just, even when they were difficult. He showed him how to balance strength with mercy, how to lead with both courage and compassion.
I spoke of justice, of compassion, of the delicate balance between strength and mercy. I wanted Simba to understand that being a leader was not just about being the strongest or the bravest, but about being wise and fair. I told him stories of our ancestors, of the great kings who had come before us, and the lessons they had learned. I wanted him to see that he was part of a long and noble tradition, and that he had a responsibility to uphold that legacy.
Simba listened intently, absorbing his father's every word. He was eager to learn, to prove himself worthy of the mantle that would one day be his. He asked questions, sought advice, and practiced tirelessly. He wanted to be ready, to be the leader that his father believed he could be. The bond between father and son grew stronger with each lesson, each shared moment of wisdom and guidance. But Scar's influence continued to grow. He was cunning and manipulative, always lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Scar resented Mufasa and envied Simba, seeing them as obstacles to his own ambitions. He began to sow seeds of discord, whispering lies and half-truths, trying to turn others against the rightful king and his heir. He rallied a small group of lionesses to his cause, promising them power and prestige in his new order. Scar was a master of manipulation, playing on their fears and insecurities, convincing them that they would be better off under his rule. He painted a picture of a new era, one where they would have more power and influence, where they would no longer be bound by the old ways. He planted seeds of discontent among the other animals, exploiting their fears and insecurities. Scar knew that a divided pride would be easier to conquer, and he used every trick in the book to create division and mistrust. He spread rumors, fueled rivalries, and played on the natural tensions that existed within the Pride Lands. The once harmonious kingdom was slowly being torn apart from within. The Pride Lands, once a haven of peace, were slowly being poisoned by suspicion and doubt. The lush, vibrant landscape began to wither, reflecting the growing turmoil within the Pride. The animals, once united in their loyalty to Mufasa, began to question his leadership, to wonder if perhaps Scar's vision of the future might be better. The air was thick with tension, and the sense of impending doom was palpable. Simba witnessed the growing division within the pride. He saw the fear and uncertainty in the eyes of his fellow lions, the way they looked to Scar for answers. It was a difficult time for the young cub who was still trying to find his own place in the world. He felt the weight of his future responsibilities more acutely than ever, knowing that he would one day have to restore the pride to its former glory.
I saw the fear in the eyes of some, the distrust in the gazes of others. The pride was no longer a united family, but a group of individuals, each looking out for their own interests. The sense of community, of shared purpose, was fading. It was a heartbreaking sight, and I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But I also knew that we had to stay strong, to hold on to the hope that we could overcome these challenges together.
He felt a growing sense of unease, a premonition of the storm that was about to break. The dark clouds on the horizon were not just a sign of bad weather, but a metaphor for the troubles that lay ahead. Simba knew that the time for play was over, that he had to step up and face the challenges head-on. The future of the Pride Lands depended on it, and he was determined to be the leader that his father had taught him to be. One day, while practicing his hunting skills, Simba encountered a group of hyenas encroaching on the Pride Lands. He had been honing his abilities, learning to move silently through the tall grass, his muscles coiled and ready to spring. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the savannah when he first caught sight of them.
These were not the usual scavengers. These hyenas were larger, more aggressive, their eyes burning with a strange intensity. They obeyed only one master, Scar. Their presence was a clear sign of his growing influence and ambition. The hyenas moved with a purpose, their snarls echoing through the air, sending a chill down Simba's spine.
Simba, though outnumbered, stood his ground. He had learned from the best. He fought with courage and skill, driving the hyenas back, but the encounter left him shaken. Each swipe of his paw, each growl, was a testament to his training and the legacy of his father. Yet the sheer number of hyenas and their ferocity was overwhelming. The battle was fierce, and though Simba emerged victorious, the cost was a newfound fear and realization of the dangers that lay ahead.
I had glimpsed the true face of Scar's ambition, and it chilled me to the bone. The hyenas were not just mindless followers. They were a part of a larger, more sinister plan. The look in their eyes was not just of hunger, but of loyalty to a dark cause. It was a stark reminder that the Pride Lands were no longer a safe haven.
He raced back to his father, his heart pounding. The landscape blurred around him as he sprinted, the urgency of the situation driving him forward. Every beat of his heart echoed the gravity of what he had just witnessed. The Pride Lands, his home, were under threat, and he needed to warn his father immediately.
I recounted my encounter with the hyenas, the look in their eyes, the sense of menace that surrounded them. My voice trembled as I described the intensity of their gaze, the way they moved with a coordinated purpose. It was clear that they were not acting on their own, but under the direct orders of Scar. The realization that Scar's reach extended so far was terrifying.
Mufasa listened intently, a grim expression settling on his face. His eyes, usually filled with warmth and wisdom, now reflected a deep concern. He understood the implications of Simba's encounter. The Pride Lands were on the brink of a crisis, and the threat was closer than ever. Mufasa's mind raced as he considered the next steps to protect his family and his kingdom.
I knew that the time for games was over. Scar had shown his hand, and the Pride Lands were in grave danger. The carefree days of my youth seemed like a distant memory. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me, and I realized that I had to grow up quickly. The safety of my pride depended on it.
Simba, no longer a naive cub, looked into his father's eyes. He saw the pain, the worry, but also the unwavering determination. Mufasa's gaze was steady, filled with a resolve that inspired Simba. In that moment, he understood the true meaning of leadership and the sacrifices it entailed. The bond between father and son was stronger than ever, forged in the fires of adversity.
In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I would stand by my father, protect my pride, and face whatever darkness lay ahead. The path was clear, and though it was fraught with danger, I was ready to embrace my destiny. Together, we would confront Scar and his minions and restore peace to the Pride Lands. The journey ahead would be challenging, but with courage and unity, we would prevail.
That right there was a heavy story. It played out almost exactly what I felt like it should have. It seemed like Mufasa is going to be paralyzed. The weight of the Pride Lands, the Pride Rock is going to be on Simba. And ultimately, Simba versus Scar is going to happen again. just as it did in the original story. Wow. What do y'all think? Y'all like this? Let me know in the comments. And y'all stay safe.